Hey guys, Pat here. The criticism that Hollywood has run out of ideas is a cliche at this point. Everyone loves to complain about remakes and reboots, cinematic universes, cash grabs. However, we know that a talented filmmaker and writer can come in and make something good despite our hesitations. Sometimes a good movie is enough. It transcends the cynical Hollywood that produced it. A lot of the time, I wonder if I've lost my love for movies. Of course, this always goes away when you see a movie you enjoy. The happiest side of myself comes out from a film that I absolutely love. The parts of me that I don't like is being so damn skeptical about everything, so cynical about everything. I've been accused of being jaded before, although I don't think that criticism holds, but I understand it, why people see it that way. This brings us to the Joker, though. This brings us to this Joker origin movie WB is making. Directed by Todd Phillips and rumored to be produced by Martin Scorsese. They're going to cast a new Joker, and they're going to keep Jared Leto for a separate Harley Quinn movie that I guess is going to be that Gotham City Sirens flick, but more of a Joker Harley flick. They're saying it's going to be in the vein of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So we're going to have two cinematic Jokers at the same time. And it sounds like a lower budget and more gritty film is going to be made in this origin movie. To say this is strange is putting it lightly. Having two actors play the same character in different adaptations happens on TV sometimes. Sometimes that happens. There'll be two actors, like Sherlock Holmes was being played, and I think still is being played by two different actors on television. You have Elementary, which is I think a CBS show, and then you have Sherlock, which is BBC. So I understand that, but having two characters play the same character in this sense that it's part of the same studio, because typically it's two different studios making those products. They take a character that's popular, some really popular IP, and then they do their own thing with it. They change the name, they come up with their own concept. What's even weird here is that Jared Leto looks 30, even though he's in his 40s. So I'm not sure how young they want to go with this Joker in the origin story. Like, there's been rumors that it's gonna be a younger Joker, but I'm like, well, Jared Leto looks 28 years old, even though he's in his 40s, and some actors older than him, or even younger than him, actually, don't look as young as he does. That guy hasn't aged, like, at all. He hasn't aged pretty much since Requiem for a Dream, I don't think. So that's a point to bring up. This is a very odd thing. Typically, you don't see the same famous character being done in the same universe by the same studio. Well, I don't know if it's going to be taking place in the same universe. Let me take that back. I don't think the Joker origin movie is going to take place in the same universe. So let me retract that. This is going to be some separate division of DC films that is, I guess they're Elseworlds tales. They're going to be telling stories that don't tie into the DC cinematic universe. The Scorsese element, though, is hinting at something similar to Goodfellas or Departed, which is interesting. But I doubt he's actually going to be very involved with this movie, or really, if at all. He's working on The Irishman right now for Netflix. Todd Phillips is even more weird, considering he is known for doing comedy films, and his last film, War Dogs, got mixed reviews, and was basically a bomb at the box office, costing $100 million and not even touching that worldwide. I don't think Phillips is a bad director. You can't deny his hits like The Hangover, Road Trip, Old School. He's actually an above-average filmmaker for the genre he's in. He puts a lot of effort into his shot choices, and his films are typically have very nice flow and editing. They're put together very well. They have nice production values. All of his movies, actually, I think they're pretty competently made. I think around The Hangover, though, he started to get a little bit more sloppy. The sequels and Due Date had terrible editing, in my opinion, and felt rushed and lazy. I called him the Michael Bay of comedy directors with the Hangover sequels and Due Date. War Dogs was a step in the right direction, though. But it's also kind of a mixed bag. For everything that's really good about it, and you can see the influences and what he's trying to do as a filmmaker and how he's trying to grow as a filmmaker, it's just a movie with a lot of potential, but it never gets as interesting as you think it will, and it's never as engrossing or as immersive and funny and tense as you think it's going to be. It's just kind of okay. But I'm guessing they want some funny stuff in this movie, and Phillips might make sense within the context of that. That it might have a comedic bent, and he makes something funny with it, with a gritty Scorsese-esque approach. They've said Taxi Driver and stuff like that was an influence. The rumor is they want Leo DiCaprio for the role, which is making me laugh because there's no way in hell I see that ever happening. That just makes no sense. Leonardo DiCaprio in no way. I just don't see it. They would have to pay him so much money. I mean, they would have to pay him a ridiculous truckloads of money, and I don't think they need to do that. Like, Leo is still reaching for the sky, and he avoids franchise films like this. He made like $50 million being in Inception because of back end. Shutter Island, he made a bunch of money. Wolf of Wall Street, The Revenant. He makes money off his own films. He produces them. He stars in them. He gets Oscar nominations for them. And then they're huge hits. These original flicks he makes are adaptations of books, what have you. And then he makes more money that way. You're not going to pay him $60-70 million to be in a Joker movie. They might give him some back end. But I don't know, why would Leo do that when he could just go make an original movie and make the same money instead of taking the risk of doing a Joker performance and it not working out? I mean, because a lot of people have a lot of, I don't know, they're very protective of the Joker, even though there's been multiple interpretations of the characters throughout the years. People have their favorites, they think what the Joker is. I think this would upset the common moviegoer who's used to seeing Jared Leto as the Joker now, even though I wasn't a fan of him at all. That's what people are saying. So to just say, hey, well, Leo's going to be a Joker in this movie, and then Jared Leto's the Joker in the separate film series, I think that's going to confuse a lot of people. It's not like James Bond where you cast a new actor every, well, now with Daniel Craig, he's been James Bond for a long time now, but you recast a new actor every, 15 years or so, and people are used to that. It's a lot different when you're just saying, hey, you guys love the Joker. Let's give you as much Joker as possible. It almost takes away the novelty of having the Joker in one of your movies, because we go to see a lot of these films for the Joker, but to have multiple Jokers going on. Although that opens up the Jason Todd theory with Jared Leto's Joker. To be honest, I'm not interested in a Joker Origins movie. Even though Killing Joke is one of my favorite comic books of all time, the thing about the Joker that is so interesting is the mystery and the evil behind that mystery. He is just what he is, and trying to figure him out takes away part of the joy of the character, I've always felt. I've always seen the Joker as an extremely meta character. It's like he knows he's in a comic book and points out how silly everything is in the confines of a comic book. The psychology of the Joker is a fascinating mirroring of Batman. They are both driven by their obsessions and have lost their connection to the man behind the mask. The Joker and Batman complete each other. He makes Batman even richer as a character, and that is what a good comic book villain should always do. Batman has arguably the best rogues gallery in comic books, but the Joker is focused on so much because he went from a classic gangster type into a character exploring the darkest parts of human nature and the worst parts we see in ourselves. A lot of people think the Joker's a nihilist character, especially because of Nolan's interpretation of it with Heath Ledger, which was a very original interpretation of the character. That's the thing I liked about it, is that they did their own thing with it. They didn't just say, hey, let's take all the tropes from the comic books. And Tim Burton did his own thing in a lot of ways, especially with the background of Jack Napier and being involved with Batman's parents' death. That was which I don't think was a bad thing in that movie necessarily, but for a Batman fan, that was definitely like, was that a good idea? It doesn't necessarily hurt the film, but it definitely is odd. It is odd to have them connected that way, but whatever, if that's what Tim Burton wanted to do. But one thing I liked about Nolan's Dark Knight was that he didn't give us the origin. It was a clever decision, and it makes the Joker scarier and gives us the illusion of depth that probably isn't actually there, because less is more. And Nolan really tore the character down to his bones, and went with a tone-driven take. My personal favorite Joker is Mark Hamill from the animated series, and that is mainly because I find him totally lovable, and actually pretty funny. The over-the-top nature Hamill in the animated series is just makes the Joker feel larger than life. a being that Batman could never possibly contain or understand. But that nihilist angle that some people have because of Heath Ledger's Joker, I don't think applies to the Joker. I don't think the Joker is completely nihilist. I think he actually loves life, and he loves living, and he loves friendship and interactions with people. Not in the traditional way that we love it, but I actually think the Joker is one of the happiest characters in DC. I think the Joker legitimately enjoys what he does. And I don't think it's just from nihilism and thinking that it's pointless and everybody, if you take them down to their bare bones, is savage and tribalist. I think he actually thinks that there's an exciting rush and joy to living life without worry or without the consequences of your own life, to truly live, to truly be on the edge of existence, on the edge of death. But okay, so back to my skeptical side. This DC stuff is getting weird. Whedon doing reshoots on Justice League, Matt Reeves saying his Batman flick will be more standalone, and now with the success of Wonder Woman, we will probably see Patty Jenkins taking a bigger role in the whole universe. I don't want to say they're going to reboot the universe after Justice League, but it does feel like they are retooling it and trying to change things behind the scenes, and as fast as possible. The two Joker thing doesn't make sense to me because the average moviegoer is going to be really confused. Seeing trailers with a different Joker and wondering if the movies are connected. You know, I'm going to understand, but if somebody in the theater sees these trailer and watches it online, going to understand. This also goes into the thing if Leto's Joker is actually an old Robin, which I brought up earlier, which I guess is an interesting theory that sounds too thought out for anything we've seen so far from the DC Universe. Why not just use Leto or fire him? I thought Leto was absolutely terrible in Suicide Squad, but I can't blame him for getting almost all of his scenes cut out and David Ayer's shockingly poor direction of his actors in that film. Nobody is good in that movie, and everything in that movie's a mess. So, let it just be over the... You know, Leto has this over-the-top makeup and design, and it's ridiculous and funny in all the wrong ways. I like Jared Leto in Dallas Buyers Club and Requiem for a Dream, Fight Club, My So-Called Life. I think he can be good. And I even get the casting of him as the Joker. He has the sex appeal for women, and he ages really well. Leto can play this character for a long time without looking too old. He wasn't my top choice, but I was excited to see him in Suicide Squad until I saw the actual movie and was stunned by how cringe his scenes were in the film. And how little of he was in that film. He's in it like 5 minutes. So my first issue is not recasting or figuring out what they want to do with Leto. I'm hoping this doesn't turn into the X-Men franchise with its timeline. Granted, there is good X-Men movies despite the screwed up timeline and continuity, but DC doesn't need to throw everything out the window to fix their problems. Normally, I would like a studio taking a risk. But a Joker movie is never really a risk because of the Joker is such a big character. He sells lots of merchandise. And the box office track record of this character is more than solid. Even Suicide Squad did really well and sold a lot of merchandise of Harley Quinn and the Joker. I just feel like a lot of the appeal of the character would be gone in this origin story. It's something nobody really wanted, totally, but we got it anyway, and Alan Moore wrote a brilliant comic. They gave us an idea of a Joker origin story, and it kind of became canon for a lot of people. That's just because The Killing Joke was such a brilliant piece of writing. But I'm not sure if we actually needed that origin. And Alan Moore's shown kind of a mixed feeling on that comic. Although I don't agree. I think it's a great piece of work. But it transcends the art form. So we go, okay, well, let's just go with this origin story that, you know, he was a comedian and it didn't work out. And he had one bad day and he lost everything. And then he did something he shouldn't have done, and he got turned into this freak of nature. That's an okay origin story. It's not bad. And it works well within the context of the book it's in. But that doesn't mean that the Joker now has this definitive origin. I don't like the multiple origins and multiple versions of the Joker we've seen throughout the years. I like that a writer can come in and do their own thing with the Joker. But that's also the issue, is that with every new Joker we get either a good writer, like Paul Dini, or a bad writer like David Ayer coming in and giving their own crazy interpretation of the character. And people always say to me, they argue, you know, especially non-comic book fans, they go, well, there's been multiple interpretations of the Joker. There's always been all this stuff. You're just upset that this isn't the Joker you like. It's like, that's not really fair. There has been a consistent track record of who the Joker is and why he is and the kind of character he is and the beats we like that have existed in the comic books for a long time now. it's not just this Frank Miller universe that we know. There's been a lot of Joker, and there's been a lot of really dark but profound takes on the Joker that don't even hint at an origin, because an origin doesn't matter. The Joker just is. It's what it is. But we like the Joker, and we get who he is immediately. We don't need to know why. Part of the brilliance of him as a comic book character, what makes him great, is how realized he is, how vivid he is. People are drawn to the Joker due to his iconic design. In the mind games, he plays with Batman throughout the years, but you just see a picture of the Joker in a panel and you totally get who he is. They don't need to explain more than that. The design does everything. He's a completely vivid, in-your-face, fully understood character. A lot of people hate the Joker, actually, because of this. They think that he's just a writer's dream. You just get to project whatever you want onto the character. He doesn't actually have to be well written and thought out. But that's another debate, and I personally don't feel that way. So the idea here is that DC is basically going to have an Elseworlds branch, a different label that makes movies apart from the DC universe. This isn't actually the worst idea either. This would free them up to do unique stories on lower budgets and with R ratings. They are approaching this like a graphic novel. It's self-contained story, and it's only there to be what it is. But if you're going to do that, why not do something more original? Then another flick about the Joker. Why not take a minor DC character like the Question and bring him into the mainstream? Also, every Snyderverse film has always felt like one big Elseworlds tale anyway. And the focus and the plot and character development is just all over the place. Batman v Superman felt like an Elseworlds tale. That wasn't Batman. That wasn't Superman. We go from a Superman origin flick to Superman playing a supporting role in his own movie where Batman dominates, to a Justice League movie that sounds like 3 different movies have been made, and they all suck. Wonder Woman is a major financial and critical success. But I wonder if it was a fluke and DC still has no overarching plans. The Joker origin movie just feels like some Hollywood executive idea, and then they got a bunch of people together who drooled over making a new Joker movie. Like, oh yeah, let's do that. Could it be a good movie? Of course it could be a good movie. And at the start of the video, I pointed out how much this most certainly can happen, always. As of right now, though, to say I'm lukewarm is putting it lightly. Is it going to be the Killing Joke with the stand-up comedy stuff? This is just weird news, right? But I hope the take they have is actually something worth watching and isn't just another cliche good guy turns bad story because of his life. Because bad things happened to him, he became the Joker. I think that almost takes away from what makes him so rich, thematically and philosophically, to Batman. Even though I get he's paralleling what happened to Batman and his parents getting shot, I like the idea of Joker being under these circumstances without that tragedy in his life, like Batman has a tragedy. I think that makes them very interesting when you think about it, that Batman does what he does with that tragedy and Joker doesn't, yet they're at the same level of heightened existence for what they're doing. And craziness. Alan Moore taps into this, just how insane Batman really is in that book. I'm also not interested in another gangster story like Burton's Batman, and I don't think it would help the argument for its purpose if you went down that route. The movie is going to take place in the early 80s, which is not typical for the Joker world that we know. I'm guessing this is to make it have that 70s gritty feel that some of the early 80s flicks still carried over. And I gotta say, even in the comics, I never really liked being showing any possible origins of the character, It just, I can't think of one that I absolutely love. It's just, it works in the context of its own story, I guess. And DC's only cheapening their brand with this. I would have more excitement if it didn't feel like WB was doing too much at once. There is fear there won't be enough focus put on any single project, because they seem more concerned with making as many things as possible without fleshing out each film individually and how they connect to the next film. Maybe it will be good. They have this idea of doing it like a Scorsese flick, the tone being similar to that of Taxi Driver, the King of Comedy, which I think makes a lot of sense, the King of Comedy angle, although that does make me feel like they're going to lean towards the Killing Joke side. This all sounds interesting on paper, but I am not sure if Todd Phillips can pull that off without it feeling like a shallow imitation of something else. I've always felt origin stories of the Joker take something away, right? it almost tries to explain his cruelty. It almost tries to explain exactly what he is. And I prefer something more abstract to what the Joker is than that. I prefer something that's a lot more up to interpretation than being finite. I like the subtext he can add to a Batman story, but not exactly what he does in his day-to-day life as the Joker is very interesting to me. However, this could be a good flick. I hope it's a good movie. And I want it to be good, and I hope Todd Phillips and Scorsese and everyone involved can do something with it. And I hope whoever they cast as the Joker, be it Paul Dano, which I've heard that come out, which is a very good choice, or Dan Stevens, any of the guy who played Ramsay Bolton on Game of Thrones. I've heard a lot of people's name thrown out there. Leonardo DiCaprio, I think that's a wrong way to go. I think that's a bad idea. I think they should just drop that. Something like Paul Dano makes a lot more sense. The cinematography could be great. It could be a really great standalone Joker story. I don't know, but I'm just not interested in a great standalone Joker story, and I've seen the Joker. I've seen the Joker a lot. I would prefer a movie about a villain or a character that I haven't seen a lot of, and I just would prefer something else that doesn't confuse so many people with Jared Leto's existence. But that's just me. You can leave your own opinion in the comments section. Tell me your favorite DC flick and how you feel about this movie. Like and subscribe. And guys, please rewind your VHS tapes before you take them back to the store. Just have a little courtesy. Come on now.